YouTube Skipper T here. Well, I've set my blacksmithing forge back up. Now I'm under the shade of the tree as opposed to doing it on concrete and in the heat of the day. So hopefully I won't be in such a rush. Take my time, get my goal accomplished today. I think I'm just going to take another piece of rebar, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to take probably 6 or 8 inches of the end of this, and I'm just going to flatten it out and turn it around so that I've just got a way that I can scoop up my coal and keep it into the fire pit on my forge here. The next thing I'll tell you is that the Barbie forge gave up the ghost. It was just a cheap, super thin piece of metal, stamped out type thing that I'd gotten from Walmart. Served its purpose, did pretty good for a couple of different times, but it started to loosen up and sway in all different directions, and there really wasn't any way for me to tighten it up any more than it already was. But what concerned me was A, the weight of the brake drum that was sitting down inside of it, and 2, having just a super hot fire in there. As a result, I was worried about it falling over, the chances of my catching any one of our 3 dogs on fire, the backyard, my shop, whatever the case may be. So I've built a new forge, and this is it. I've got a couple of things that I'm still going to do to it, but let me grab the camera and zoom in and show you what it looks like. Okay guys, this is my new forge table. I just added this piece of angle so that when I want to lay down, keep a piece of material relatively flat to the fire, as my coal base is sitting here, and then I can adjust this depending on the length of material that I'm using. I can just slide this angle up and help keep that, because you want to keep your metal at an even, you don't want it down at an angle like this. You want it to be even up here. That way it heats evenly in the area that you're trying to heat up. So what I've done was I took a piece of 1/4-inch plate, some angle iron, and some round stock here, some cold rolled round stock. I think this is 1/2 inch here, and basically welded myself together a table. My brake drum fits down inside just like it did on the other one. In this one I just drew the circle out, used a cutting torch, cut out a hole in it, reassembled everything underneath just like it was on the old one. Works out pretty good. I took some angle iron, just like you see here on the legs, and what I did was I welded it to the bottom side of the table. That way I've got a place extra coal can sit in here. I can scoop it, I can move it away, I can bring it into the fire, and I still have a nice place right here where I can set the material down for whatever it is that I'm heating up in this area here. It is a lot more sturdy than the table that, the Barbie forge that I had made previously. I am going to weld a couple of supports on the sides of it here, and I may put a handle out like this on the sides. That way I've got a rack and a place where I can put my tongs, maybe set my hammers down. Currently I'm using a wire rack over here. I may continue to do that, but either way I will put one more piece on either side of the legs here, and maybe one across the back, just to give it a little bit more rigidity. But this is a far better table than the Barbie forge that I was using earlier. In fact, I cut it so that the back legs here, they're a little bit shorter. Got some lawnmower wheels and put it on the back. That way I can pick it up by this here and then roll it to wherever it is that I want to do my forging. As like today, I'm under the big shade tree in the backyard. But anyway, it's the same setup, just a different table. Cut everything out, welded it all together. Man, I haven't welded in a long time. Took me a bit to get back to being proficient with that, and all the ugliness is underneath, which is good. But overall, it turned out pretty slick. I'm pretty happy with it. I rounded the edges here so I wouldn't, cut and hurt myself as I'm moving material in and out. I've got a quenching pail here. Over back on this side, I've got my 25-pound bucket of coal. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and fire it up. This is the first time I'm going to fire up a fire in my new forging table. Stay with me. Okay guys, there's my first fire in my new forging table. It's coming along nicely. It's a bit breezy out today, but that's going to be nice. It'll keep me a little cooler. And My main concern is just watching the sparks, make sure they don't land on my house. But it's been raining for 4 months, so hopefully it's not too dry out for this. I do have the water ready to go over there, turned on, nozzle, just in case we have to put anything out. But anyway, we'll let that heat up for a little bit, and then we'll stick some metal in there and see if we can change its shape. Stay with me. Alright guys, I did pick up a couple of new tools. Got a forging hammer off of eBay. It's got a good feel to it. This is a 2 1/4 pound hammer, I believe. I picked up some other tongs at a forging expedition, or not expedition, but expose, if you will. Found out that they do this frequently, and it's about 100 miles north of here. Ran up last weekend and just to check it out and see what was up there. It was really interesting. It was a whole association of blacksmiths, so they had 3 different demonstrations going on at any one time, and lots of vendors were set up, so I picked up a few things. I got a turning fork to sit down in my hardy hole here. I had to grind it down a little bit because it was a little bit too big. But I picked that up. I picked another one up that's for rounding over a piece of metal, and I picked up a hot cutter. The hot cutter is has a 1 inch shaft on it, and my opening on my anvil is 3/4 of an inch. So I've got to grind that down a little bit to get it to fit in here so that I can use it as a hot cut. But for today's activities, we're just going to be bending over and flattening out a piece of metal, taking it and use the peening side of this. We'll see if we can't spread it open a little bit, make it a little bit wider so it'll be a decent scoop for, you know, rearranging the coal and stuff in the forge. So stay with me and we'll see where we go from here. Okay guys, one of the things I learned last time was that I wasn't getting and then keeping my steel hot enough. Today I don't think I'm going to have a problem with that, with the wind blowing like it is. And the objective is to get that red hot, almost an orange color. And this is looking pretty good for that right now. All I'm doing today is flattening this piece out. And it cools off pretty quickly in the breeze today. So it looks like it's going to be a few hammer strokes, a lot more fire, a few hammer strokes, a lot more fire. Stay with me. Okay guys, it's heating up again pretty good. Take some of that off. Got a good color going. A little bit of slag off there. Before it cools down too much. Use a little bit longer handled hammer here. Let the hammer do the work. Flatten this up just a little bit deeper there. It's getting there. Starting to flatten out a little bit for us. We're kind of drawing it out a little bit. It's a little longer than it was. It's a pretty thick piece of rebar. Pretty heavy. This, from now on, I'm going to do it here. You can see how it's not quite even. So I'll work on this backside here a little bit and see if we can't draw it out a little further. Stay with me as the fun continues. Okay guys, I think it's on for the last time, and I think what I'm going to do now is wrap it around. I've made it about twice as wide as it was. I've thinned it out somewhat, but I think I'm going to go ahead and put the angle bend in it. And I was thinking I might make the paddle a little bit wider, but it's fairly narrow on either side of the flange for the brake drum. in order to bring coal around that, scoop it up, bring it up front so I can, slide it off the end, throw it back on the fire. I don't really think I want it to be much wider than it really is. So right now I'm just heating up that last section. That's pretty good right there. So I think I'll just bring this around. Tap it back out straight. Now I think what I've got is a functional tube that I can now pull the coals back up into the fire, rearrange things. Let me shut this fan off. So if I want to scoop the coal back up, get it into a place where I want it so that I can work with it, because my brake drum's about 10 and a half, 11 inches in circumference, or correction, in diameter in the center. I wanted it to be just a little bit larger so that when I reach in and scoop, I can put the coals where I want it. I can get it to go where the fire, make the fire go where I want it to go. So I think ultimately, that's not looking too bad. Might be just about a 90-degree angle. Seems to be okay. We've gotten it flattened out somewhat. It's kind of flush on one side, slightly rounded on the other. That'll work out nicely around the crevasses and various things inside the brake drum itself. But I think, as we're showing here, this is going to work out nicely. I can use it upright if I want to be finite with it in this fashion, as opposed to laying it flat and using it as a big scoop. I still have plenty of room where I can get past the sides, gather up any of the coal that's fallen over the side, get it back where I can get a hold of it, put it back up into the fire. I think this has worked out nicely. Well, let's cool that off, because no matter what, even when it's not red, it's still hot. I know. I've learned to burn myself and live with it. So we'll just let that cool for a little bit, and that today is basically the coal forge scoop, if you will. Okay guys, that's it for today. We've made the scoop. It's cooled off a little bit. Seems to have worked pretty good. Appreciate you riding along today. Keep your heads up, keep your eyes open, and we'll see you outside. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.